My friends, the grind continues. I have here a brand new laptop that I bought from the Lenovo website, Lenovo Canada website. This one here is cool because it is the Lenovo Legion Pro 5. Awesome. Gen 10 2025. So this is a brand new SKU. This one here also has the brand new RTX 5070. I haven't seen any reviews of the 5070 laptop yet, so this is a 5070 laptop. I picked this up here. I did purchase the Intel model. It's not here yet. It's not released. This is the AMD model. The AMD model only goes up to a 5070, not a 5070 Ti. It's actually fairly different than the Intel version of the same laptop. So I won't do too much intro here. This here is one tier below the 7 Pro, which I've already done a bunch of Pro 7 videos here. Let's jump into the review here. Let's not take more time in the intro. We'll jump in and I'll show you guys what I think about this laptop. Okay, so let's explore the laptop specifications together. We have the PSRef document here, and then we have the Canadian website. So we only have one CPU option. It is the 8945HX. That is a very powerful CPU. It is based on the 7950X desktop CPU. 7950X desktop CPU, which is one of the most powerful CPUs on the market, straight up, like. And we have the 5060. So it's there. I don't know why the PSRef document doesn't have it yet, but I don't know. I knew that. I'm actually just about to buy this, so that's how I knew that. Like literally, probably in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to buy it. Memory, it says here we have 2 times 16 gigabytes SODIMM. I actually spec'd mine out with 1, so that's an option here. Interesting kind of stuff going through here. Screen options, we only have one screen option here, a 1600p IPS screen, which is fine. I actually prefer IPS over OLED, so long as it is 100% DCI-P3, which it is. Very nice. 240 hertz refresh. We get stuff like FreeSync, G-Sync, etc. So that's very, very, very nice. That's not a lot of customizability here. You know, you are missing out on some other things such as USB 4 being a little bit of a loss. You know, no USB 4 kind of blows, to be honest. But I mean, it's AMD. I guess it has sacrifices. So. Now, one other thing to be aware of, if you look at the actual store here, this is the store page. When we come down here and we look at the ports, this front one, where are you? This front one here, number 9, is showing as a Thunderbolt port. This is not a Thunderbolt port. It's not even a USB 4 port. It actually runs at about 10 gigabit per second, so the same as that. As I say that, I'm actually testing it off camera. I just wanted to double check everything. So it certainly is not, that's an error in the Lenovo website. It is not a Thunderbolt 4. It actually does, it's based on the PSRef document. PSRef document was correct, where it's not Thunderbolt 4, but obviously the marketing materials here unfortunately do show it as Thunderbolt 4, so Lenovo might have to address that. But as it stands right now, there is no USB 4 or Thunderbolt 4 on the laptop, unless maybe they're going to update it in the BIOS or something later. You have the option of going with a single stick or a dual stick. I went with a single stick because down the road I can add more. It's your choice. I just kind of wanted to also be able to compare the performance between 1632, which I do in this video, seeing the difference there. I have the 5070 right here, which is an 8 gigabyte GPU. The 5060 came out today. Well, yesterday, I guess it would be technically. I just haven't bought it yet, but it came out yesterday. I'm about to. You get 8 gigabytes of RAM on both of them. They should be similar performance. I went with the 5070. I mean, first of all, because it was all there was at the time, but I would in some cases potentially go down to the 5060 because yeah, you do lose some performance, but in both cases you do have 8 gigabytes of VRAM. 720p HD webcam and microphone. I actually upgraded to the 5 megapixel. You can get some switchable keycaps as well, ceramic keycaps. You can look at those as well, so that's pretty cool. Overall, I mean, the price is pretty high right now, but again, this is like launch pricing. It's going to come down. I got actually some coupons on it, which is interesting that they were there for the time that I bought it. But overall, I mean, we're definitely going to see some price drops of this right now. Okay, and here's the laptop. Looking pretty nice. Similar design to the 7, I suppose, 7 Pro. Pro 7? 7 Pro. Yeah, get that out of there. A little bit thinner, as you'd expect from the 5 Pro. Look at that, like sticker there. A little bit thinner. The actual chassis itself, slightly thinner. The Gundam bum isn't as aggressive or pronounced here. A little bit more discreet, which is nice. The 7 Pro, 7i Pro, I guess it would be, or Pro 7i, was a little bit less discreet. This is a little more discreet. So it does have actually some shipping covers, which is nice. Keep dust and grime out of the ports. That's the first time I've ever seen that on any laptop. I'm happy about that. That's good. Just little things like that can go a long way just to prevent damage. Yeah, so it's looking good. We are going to be fingerprint prone because it is that dark. It's not quite black. It's like a super dark charcoal kind of gunmetal look to it. So you are going to get fingerprints, but you can wipe them down. That's nice. Bottom. Yeah, a little bit of plastic on the bottom. They have to keep costs down somewhere. Yeah, it's plastic bottom. Metal lid though. And, you know, some other accents there. Hard to tell. That might be a metal piece there going around. Yeah, that's a metal. So you get a mix of metal and plastic. Not too bad. A little bit of a difference between the 7 Pro. I mean, otherwise, how would they change it? This is the AMD model, and the Intel model actually goes up to a 5070 Ti. Weight is not... Actually, it's a little bit lighter than I thought. 2.372. So it's certainly not like a light laptop, but it's also not as heavy as I thought. With the power brick, it's going to go up a little bit here. 3.066 kilograms. So this is a 245 watt. It's certainly not tiny, but it's not actually that big. And for comparison, here's the older, like this is one generation older Lenovo charger. This is 230 watts. So this is actually smaller, less watts, but it's actually larger, right? So considerable footprint decrease there, right? I mean, the actual surface area is probably almost half, not quite, but maybe almost half. Thickness is at least, it's a little bit thinner actually. So it's just generally speaking, it's not much lighter, it's just more dense. But you do lose a lot of surface area, which is quite nice because this thing, I mean, these old school chargers are large, right? So you are cutting down the carry size, not necessarily weight. So you do get a 245 charger there. It's just a little bit smaller. That's kind of nice there. So that's looking good. You know, this is a nice black metal here, or super dark charcoal. I'll say it's not quite black, super dark charcoal. I do have the swappable keycaps as well. Bum, a little bit of plastic on it. You know, the design's looking all right. Ports, they have moved them from the back. So last year, you know, basically every other year, there were ports on the back there. They have prioritized cooling. I do like the ports on the back. So that is a sacrifice. It's a loss. The fact that, you know, some of the ports like the HDMI and the power are no longer coming out of the back. But they didn't do it for no reason. It's not like they did it for an aesthetic reason. They did it so they can have more cooling. So they have dramatically more cooling coming out of the back there. And based on my testing of the 7 Pro 7i, it did run cool. Relatively speaking, it did run cool. So they are doing it for a reason. Power is now on the left side there, coming out HDMI. So your problematic ports are going to be on the left side. 2 USB-C on that side, a USB-A, fast USB-A. And then on the right side, you get some more ports, 2 more USB-A. So you're going to actually get 3 USB-A, which is really nice, and 2 USB-C, camera kill switch, microphone, headphone combo jack, RJ45. So generally speaking, it has good ports. It's just that they have shifted them away from the back. So if that's a deal breaker, you might want to get last year. But they have shifted away the ports from the back there to facilitate more cooling. So it's not for no reason. There's a reason for it. Opening that up there. Screen is considerably less glossy than the Pro 7i. The Pro 7i was a glossy OLED, which had crazy high reflectivity. We will see when we get into the actual laptop screen test portion of this video, when I'm actually testing the screen, why that is. But I mean, here we're going from the OLED that you get on the Pro 7 Pro, and we're moving into an IPS screen. Now, some people may find that to be a downgrade, going from an OLED to an IPS. As crazy as this sounds, I consider it an upgrade for me personally. There are negatives to an IPS versus an OLED, but there are also advantages. For me personally, and for what I do, I would take a very high color space IPS like this. One of the advantages you can see is no gloss. We'll get into that a little bit later. The inside of the chassis here is very dark. They've slowly been decreasing the darkness, I guess, in here. It used to be like a silver. Now it's just basically black inside there. It's actually more black than the lid because the lid is a metallic. And this is just like basically a black there. So that's fine. We do have the typical Legion keyboard here. Numpad on the left there. Standard layout there. Smaller trackpad slightly off. So, you know, it's going to be lining up with the keyboard itself. Centered to the keyboard. Centered to the typing area of the keyboard, but not centered to the whole laptop there. We do have the Legion O as well. That's cool. The little bit different RGB. There will all be RGB on the keyboard, but you do lose the RGB strip that would be on the 7 Pro there, if that's something you care about. So a little bit less RGB on this here. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. Now, getting inside the laptop is actually particularly easy actually. So once you take out the screws, you can actually just go in the back here because there's quite a big, quite an easy gap to get into. You can slide the little guitar pick thing underneath and just go along and do the little torque twist that I do. Like that there. Go along like that. You just basically pull it off and then you are inside. Okay, let's get inside. So inside, plastic bottom, but it is a very massively thick piece of plastic. And it's that harder plastic that some of the higher end Legions and higher end other brands like Asus have when they have a plastic bottom. So it is going to be fairly structurally sound. It's not going to have the same type of rigidity exactly as a metal, but it is also less likely to crack and bend. So it's pretty good. 2 heat sinks there, thermal pads that are going to be for the NVMEs, obviously, and some structure there. So that's looking fine in there. So again, plastic bottom, but good plastic, I guess I'd say. Oddly, it does come with a 2242 size NVMe. That's a little weird, but I mean, obviously you can just slap in a full length. The nice thing is there is actually a screw there, so you can easily add 2242, 2280. Same here, 2242, 2280. So 2 NVMe slots, both upgradable. Adding in a larger one there. It looks like it is using, I can't see what brand that is upside down, but we'll see later. So I don't know. I guess they just have 2242s on hand, whatever. Yeah, so we also have battery here, decent size, 80 watt hours. You're not going to get good battery life on this regardless. It is a Intel HX processor, so battery life is going to be bad. That's fine though. I mean, if you disable the iGPU, if you disable the DGPU, and you go with some lower power modes, you might be able to get decent battery, but don't expect crazy battery life, despite the fact that it's reasonably sized. Speakers do not look fantastic. They're actually a little bit different than normal. They're a little bit more Z height on them, kind of a square style. And then this is a bit of a rectangle. They're not going to be the same as the premium ones you get in the Pro 7, but we'll see how they sound. They're not as nice, but that's fine over there. Now, upgradability. We do have 2 NVMe slots. This one here has a 2242. That's an interesting choice, I suppose. You could easily upgrade it to a 2280. You can see there's a full length there. So you can go with a full length there or 2242. Second NVMe slot over here, same thing. There's actually a spot for 2242 and 2280. So, I mean, more choice is better. Obviously, I'm not going to complain about that. Upgradable Wi-Fi as well. Then under here, you do have your RAM. We will take this off and have a look at the brand and that. Just pull that off like that. Oh, good. So there is a single stick of SSD in here. So it is going to be a single stick. You get 5600 mega transfers, Samsung memory, 1 stick. I prefer that when it's 16 gigabytes by 1 so that you can add in a second. So when you go through the custom builds, sometimes you can spec them out or you can do it on your own. Yeah, actually, I don't have it right now on hand, but we can test it out with 1 stick and 2 sticks, slap in 2 sticks after. But we'll do our benchmarks with 1 stick. Then we will come back and we'll do our benchmarks with 2 sticks as well. Just kind of see the difference there. So easy to upgrade, very good. Then the actual cooling solution here is pretty good. Again, not quite as robust, obviously, as the 7 Pro. The 7 Pro has vapor chamber cooling, right? This does have the same very, very high wattage, very powerful CPU, that 275HX, but the GPU here is lower. So we're going from, 5070 Ti as the base of the 7 Pro, 5080, 5090, 5080, 5090 running at 175, the 5070 Ti running at 130 to 140. Then we have here the 5070, so lower watts. So technically there should be a little bit less heat. So hopefully it does run relatively cool despite that. There's a lot of VRM cooling, like a lot, and they're trying to increase surface area with these weird designs here. So lots of VRM cooling. So despite the fact that it is heat pipe and only 2 of them, it should run relatively cool. The CPU in here is capable of getting very powerful. The 275HX in the Pro, this is an 8945HX, which is also a desktop chip capable of getting hot. So we'll see how hot it gets and how good the performance is. But I think that this should be able to keep it under wraps, at least when a heavy CPU task. Gaming, we'll see if it can do CPU and GPU at the same time. So that's that there. Let's test some upgrades here real quick. So obviously you are going to be able to put in a dual-sided and single-sided NVMe with no issues here, but let's see if we can get in a dual-sided NVMe. So this is a dual-sided NVMe right here. We can just slap that in and see if it's going to work. We'll have to take out the screw probably. Okay. See if it's dual-sided NVMe safe. It is. Now, the NVMe will be touching that power for the battery. So there will be technically not very much between the battery there and these chips here. Now, these are coated chips. It's not like that's bare metal, but we can see here, let's just see what it's touching. Yeah, it is kind of touching those bare metal there onto there. So what I would do is if you are going to put in a dual-sided NVMe, because it does physically fit, like it will actually go down. You can see this here. It will physically go down, and you'll be able to screw in the screw. I would not like the concept of these controllers here touching that battery terminal. In case there is just a random spark off of that, it could fry your SSD. So what I would do is I would honestly, this sounds crazy, but I'd put a little piece of electrical tape over that or here. Just something to prevent electrical from going from one to the other. So you are going to be able to fit it, but just be aware of that. Now let's try this side over here. This one doesn't look like there's any weirdness at all, but we'll see. Yeah, so that one doesn't work at all, actually. Interesting. What are we hitting there? Oh, that. Interesting. That's such a strange decision. Yeah, because now that thing's in the way. You'd have to take that thing right out, I think. Yeah, so you'd have to take that out, which you'd have to, you know, unscrew that or take out the motherboard, take that out, because otherwise that actually touches the bottom of the dual-sided NVMe. That's kind of dumb. Yeah, so the fact that they put that in there to fit in a 2242 means that it's actually hitting that. Let's try a single-sided though. Yeah, so that's no problem, but it is still touching it. Yeah, can you see that? It is physically, when you screw that down, it's actually going to be touching the bottom of the SSD. That's a really dumb design. I don't really like that, actually, Lenovo. This side here, single-sided, no problem. Dual-sided, yeah, just maybe put a little piece of electrical tape on there just to be safe. That'll be fine. Over here, the 2242 fits just fine. The 2280 is actually going to generally touch the bottom of that, which is, I don't like that. I guess you could take this out, but you'd have to disconnect the battery and like unscrew that. So that's kind of a dumb design. I don't really like that, to be honest. So that's the only negative there. Otherwise, it looks fantastic, but that's a little dumb. Now, I've been using the laptop for a little while, a few hours, I guess. You can see I just didn't wipe it down just to show the fingerprints. Black will show fingerprints over time. So you can give it a quick wipe down here, you know, quick wipe down with a microfiber cloth or just a standard cloth, whatever, and just watch the fingerprints kind of dissolve away. The actual keyboard itself, you can see it's a traditional Legion keyboard. Doesn't have the largest physical keycaps. It's kind of a mid-size, but they do have a ton of travel, right? So you get a lot of travel there. Very good. The keys are also going to be relatively snappy, you know, the typical Legion setup, whatever. We do still have a Copilot key here, unfortunately. There is a separation between the numpad. The numpad does come on the Legion. That's a traditional thing. Legions always have them unless it's the 14-inch, which was like a one-off, I guess. You are going to get the numpad. So if you don't like that, don't get a Legion. That's something that they have there. Probably because Legions aren't only appealing towards gamers. They're kind of like an everything, a powerhouse mobile device. I know a lot of people who get Legion laptops to do on-the-go work, right? Professional work, engineering, and that kind of stuff, where you would actually benefit from the number crunching ability of a numpad here. So that's looking good. Very good overall. Black all in here as well, so you are going to get some fingerprints here. No extra accents for design, just a straight plain look here. It's fine overall. You don't need all the accents here, but just something they got rid of. Trackpad is not huge either, just kind of a standard size trackpad. No glass on it either. So let's give it a quick type here. Open up a little numpad here, a little notepad here, and we'll just give it a quick type. Yeah, so it's a really nice keyboard. I very much like Lenovo Legion keyboards. They're one of the best in the business for gaming laptops, unless you get into like some of the ones that have like Cherry custom, Cherry mechanical switches. They're a little bit better, but they're also larger travel on that. For a gaming laptop, I do prefer Legions over anything else. They're very snappy. So not really any difference between this one here and the Legion 7 Pro, Pro 7, whatever. They feel basically the same. Very, very nice keyboard. They will be brutal for fingerprints, so just be aware of that with the black here. But if that doesn't bother you, or you just give it a quick wipe down, then you're not going to care overall. The trackpad here, again, not huge. It is off-centered. So, if you're typing like this, which you don't do, people will be like, why is this over here? Because it's off-centered. Well, you're typing over here. So it's underneath there because you move your hand down. So just be aware of that. Not gigantic, just a standard size trackpad, and it is slightly off-centered. It would be interesting if they put in like a larger one, but then they'd have to custom make it, whatever. So no glass trackpad cover there, just standard. Again, nice click on it. So overall, it's a nice trackpad. The black here could potentially get some wear over time if you're using it a lot. A little bit of grease stains sometimes I've seen on these over here. So just be aware, again, if you're very irritated by grease stains, basic wear on the black surface here, that is something to be considerate of. I've seen skins for these that you can buy, but I really would like to see Lenovo go back to silver or like a gray, some kind of gunmetal or something like that. But that's just personal preference. Most people, I think these days, they like the black, so maybe that's probably why it works for them. Now, the thing that I did order is the switchable keycaps here. So these are optional. They're like 35 bucks or something like that. You can get them here, 36 bucks Canadian. So it's not that expensive, maybe 25 American, something along the lines there. How do we open it? I had these before, oh, there we go, on the previous generations. So you do get a switchable keycap set. You get a little cloth there, instructions, one of them fell out, but that's fine. And they are ceramic. So you get a nice ceramic keycap there, and they're going to have a nice smooth texture on them. Ceramic is also going to resist fingerprints. It's also going to resist wear. So if you are using, the traditional keyboard and you're using the, it's a black material, and then you're constantly rubbing on them, that will wear off the paint, and so you will get a little bit of a wear pattern. These are in some ways kind of worth it because you can put these on your WASD there, maybe like that there. You can put them on your typical like your 1, 2, 3, 4 for your like hotkeys and that if you're playing a lot of games, and then you just won't get as much wear overall. It's also, they just feel nice to type on. It's very nice, honestly, but that's another nice thing too, that you're not going to wear down as much as well. So it will prevent kind of that wear and tear on your laptop in terms of the keyboard, and you do get a bunch of swappable of the, I guess, support brackets, the actual switch brackets there. So, if those over time, again, wear down, you can get rid of them, especially if you're an FPS shooter type person. You're going to be using the same keys over and over and over again. Or if you play a lot of MMOs, that kind of stuff, you're going to be using the same, hotkeys over and over and over again. So it is nice that you're going to be able to replace those. You're not screwed in there. So optional thing, but it is a cute little set there overall. Okay, now let's have a look at the Legion Soft for the RGB. You can see here there is RGB on the keyboard. Right, you have 6 modes. Okay, that's interesting. Usually the 5 level, they only give like 3 or 4, and then they give more to the 7. So you have 6 pre-programmed / programmable options here. One is this, apparently. That's fine. You can come through here, and we can tweak it a little bit. So let's see what we have here. So this is your brightness. It's actually not super bright. Interesting. Come in here, let's check what we can do here. So right now it's going for a wave type thing, breath, whatever. Audio, that'll go with, I guess if you're playing music. Jumping, it's gonna go through like that. Blue, I guess it's just blue. Let's go with breath, that's kind of cool. Oh, what else do we have here? Oh, you can pick your zone. So it has zones this way, which is interesting. It doesn't have per key RGB, it has like a zone from left to right. That's interesting. So rather than per key RGB or a zone where it's like zone 1, 2, 3, we have a multi-zone like that. That's pretty interesting, actually. I've never seen that like strip style. It's cool. You can come in here and you can tweak it, how fast you want to go, whatever. Lighting zone 1. So you could have this, I guess, be off, this be on, or you could make your, these keys be off and on, whatever. It's cool. So we'll go back here. Let's just go here and we'll pick breath, I suppose. That's kind of cool. Blue. And then you can change your color, right? So I could say, come in here, go like that. We'll click the whole thing. So we want the whole thing to be like that. And I just want it to be color pulse. I don't know, let's just go solid. And I'm gonna make it like that color there maybe. A little pink. Yeah, that looks nice. It's the color I want, but you can do a little tweaking in there, so that's cool. Now, screen is interesting. Very, very interesting on this laptop. The Intel model has an OLED. I want you guys to watch my review of that, even just for a moment. You know, I'll actually put a little bit in this video so we can show the difference here. I don't have the laptop on hand, but look at how non-glossy that screen is, right? That's like, I'm trying to make that thing be glossy. Here's a light right on it, right on the light. That's a bright light too. 100-watt equivalent light bulb shining right on it, and very little reflection. Now, why does that matter? OLED screens are often, not always, but often anti-reflect, or OLED screens are typically reflective. They can be anti-reflective. They don't often do that because when you put them, you know, anti-reflective coating on it, it does mute the colors and bring down the blacks a little bit. They become a little bit more gray. So they typically have a glossy or a semi-glossy reflection type platform profile. This here is an anti-gloss. So it's non-reflective. You're not going to get any of that reflectivity here. You're going to be fantastic for working in professional environments, outdoor environments, business environments. You're going to get that great, great, great screen there, right? Lights on, lights off. It's going to be fantastic. Still a bright room, even with that overhead light off, and really not a lot of reflectivity whatsoever. Going to be fantastic. The actual specs on the screen here are also very good. So we have a 16-inch screen here, 1600p, which is where you want to be for 5070. You wouldn't want bigger. You wouldn't want finer resolution because the 5070 would really struggle. This is only an 8 gigabyte VRAM GPU, unfortunately. High refresh though, 240 hertz is crazy high refresh, so that's fantastic. You know, you have advanced Optimus and all of that. The other advantage here is that it is a very good color space, 100% DCI-P3 color space. So if you compare this laptop here to the OLED variant of this laptop here, you're going to notice two things. One, you're going to get less reflectivity on this one and more reflectivity on the OLED. So that's a disadvantage for the OLED, absolutely. Reflectivity, glossy screens do add a little bit more richness. The colors are a tiny bit more vibrant, but they're glossy, so you have to struggle with that. The primary difference here is that here we get the exact same color space. So the actual colors between this here and the OLED shouldn't really vary at all. There shouldn't really be any variance whatsoever. However, the one area that you will notice, like you can see here, this is a very vibrant red. Hopefully it shows up on camera. Very vibrant red, rich, beautiful reds, deep color. You know, it's not a pinky washed out mess like you get on some lower end gaming laptops. This is a true vibrant color here. But the problem is, you can see it's very, very nice, obviously. One of the problems here is you do not get absolute blacks. You actually get slightly dimmed down blacks here. One office light on here, so the lights are primarily gone. We're going to see what I see, which is about that there. That's about what I see. No bleed whatsoever. There's no pinching. Sometimes with like cheap, I don't know, cheap assembly, you get pinching. I'll show you. Actually, I can't even get it to do it. Yeah, you get like a pinching. See that? Can you see that on camera? How you get that light bleed, right? You can get that on cheap screens where they kind of like the assembly's not good. We're not getting any pinching here, and there's no general light bleed overall. The blacks are okay. I've actually even seen IPS screens with better blacks. So it doesn't have the best blacks. It's okay. That's because it's a non-glossy screen. So glossy in general will show richer blacks even on an IPS screen, right? Especially on an OLED screen. So here we have an IPS screen that already doesn't have the best blacks because it's an IPS, and then on top of that, it's a non-glossy screen. So we do lose a little bit in the blacks, unfortunately. But what we do gain here is this is a very beautiful 100% DCI-P3 color space IPS screen, which is my preferred screen, absolutely. Beautiful greens. If you get a lower color space screen, these greens actually look kind of dead. You get kind of a yellowy tone to them, and the greens actually legitimately look kind of dead. The reds are going to come out more of a pinkish color. We don't have that issue here. This is a beautiful IPS screen. Its only negative is it's non-glossy, so it doesn't have quite as much pop, especially in the blacks. And of course, the blacks in general aren't as rich as an OLED. Obviously, that's why you buy an OLED. But in my opinion, in every other way outside of OLED blacks, the IPS wins. It's non-glossy, so you don't have to deal with reflections, which is easier on the eyes. You don't have to deal with PWM flicker, which is easier on the eyes. So if you're going to be staring at this all day, it's easier on the eyes. When I use an OLED screen all the time, I get eye strain, which is the way that it is, especially because I work on my laptop all the time. Don't have that issue with IPS whatsoever. It's also bright, 500 nits, and generally it looks to be about 500 nits. And then the color space is equivalent to an OLED, where we have 100% DCI-P3 on this one, and then the OLED version of this laptop, the Intel one, has 100% DCI-P3. So I prefer this screen. I think it's actually unfortunate that the Intel one doesn't have the option of the OLED, of the IPS, and the AMD one doesn't have the option of the OLED, because for me, I take the IPS any day over the OLED, and some people are the opposite. Everyone has their preference. But for me, considering I use these as professional laptops as well, using them all the time, I do very much prefer to have an IPS screen, as long as it's an extremely good IPS screen like this. Okay, so we will do an audio test now. If you have headphones, you are going to want to watch them. Might get a little loud. We'll come in here, start at half. Okay, now I'm going to turn it up. They're okay. They're fine. Compared to last year, the Pro 5, they're about the same, maybe a little better, slightly. I would say maybe slightly better. They're not as nice as the Pro 7. The Pro 7 is definitely better. This Pro 7 is louder, has more bass and more richness. And there are definitely laptops out there, gaming laptops with better speakers. Asus in general, a lot of their gaming laptops have better speakers. And Lenovo, their 7 are generally speaking better, and then the 9s are usually way better. They have to, I guess they have product segments where they want to separate them out. These are okay. They're definitely not going to have a ton of bass. The bass is there, you can hear it, but it's not a ton. And they're not super loud, but they're reasonably loud, I guess. And there's no tinniness or rattle or anything throughout the audio there, but they certainly are not the best. So if audio is very important to you, maybe you get the 7, because that is an improvement on the 7 Pro for sure. Absolutely, the audio is better. These are fine, though. Definitely better than a lot of more budget laptops out there, but they're not the best in the world, I would say. Now, Legion Space in general is a software on the laptop. We did the keyboard stuff here already. That's fine. In here, you do have access to some stuff generally that was in Vantage before. They've separated it out. We still do have Vantage, so I'll bring that up too. Part of the stuff's going to be in Vantage and part of the stuff's going to be here. So most of the overclocking and that is going to be in here. So we have GPU overclocking, turn it on, turn it off. Right, there you go. You have your 3 modes, which you can switch through with the function Q. You have a custom mode here. You can do your RGB brightness here. Hybrid mode, DGPU. Hybrid will switch into your actual GPU when needed. It'll go to your dedicated graphics when you're in dedicated graphics function programs, and then if you're not doing gaming, for example, it'll drop out into your iGPU. The iGPU on this laptop is pretty crappy, but it's enough to just use the laptop. I'm going to go into GGP mode because after this I'm going to do some gaming. It's fine. Very good. What's this here? Machine learning, performance optimization. I turned that on. See if it makes a difference. I don't even know. It's cool. And then it does tell you how much there's stuff there is there. Now there is some customization stuff you can do in here. You actually go in here, click it, all kinds of stuff in here. Right, so first things first, we have fan curves. You have your just default fan curve, full speed, right? Default, and you can tweak it. You can say, I don't want it to go to 100% noise until it gets to a certain level. However, let's say it gets hot, let's rip it. Let it absolutely rip up here because I don't want it to be cool. But until we get up there, right, until we get to, what's the temperature here? Let's see, 75 degrees on the CPU, 64 on the GPU. We'll just have it around there. We can even have it be a little bit, more chilled out like that, maybe something like that. But then, oops, go down one more. And then when it gets up here, it'll go more aggressive. So we can tweak the curve as needed. So it's not going to be, whatever. We could also have it go up here, but earlier. It's fine. So we'll go like that, I suppose. Different customization stuff. You could go in here. You can go how much the processor is getting for power. Short-term, long-term. You can also do cross-sharing as well. So it can share watts between the CPU and the GPU. It will go back and forth, dynamic boost type stuff. If you're in a heavy game like maybe Cyberpunk, a little bit more CPU heavy, the GPU might sacrifice a little bit when needed, something like Baldur's Gate or some simulation style games. If you're in a game that's very GPU heavy, very, very GPU heavy, not so CPU heavy, the CPU will sacrifice some of the watts, let the GPU have it, because the system only has a certain amount of watts that it has for the system, literally, that it can use. set up in the BIOS, and it can also only cool a certain amount of watts, generally speaking, too. So this way you can kind of tweak it as you want. One of the things I typically do here, if I'm going to do custom mode, because I use the defaults just kind of as they are, but one of the things that I do actually do in this program here is I set up a low CPU option, because some of the games that I play are very GPU heavy. So, I'll come in here and I'll go, we don't need the CPU to really be, going that like spicy, honestly. Just get it, around 35. We saw how efficient this, we'll see in the benchmark section how efficient the CPU can be. So you could go something like this here, GPU temperature limit, whatever, CPU platform, short term. I don't want it to boost that much, maybe. You don't have to boost that much, just chill out. GPU to CPU, so it will sacrifice the CPU if needed. We can let it do that. GPU, TGP, turn it way up, right? So now what's happening is we're letting that 5070 get full wattage, full 100 watts, but the CPU in here is not going to necessarily need as much watts, right? CPU platform peak power limit, right? Turn that way down, right? Maybe even lower, 70 like that, something like that. CPU to GPU, let the GPU steal some. So then the GPU can go from 100, maybe even 115 watts, but the CPU will stay way down. So if I'm playing a GPU heavy game, but I want the thing to stay quiet, I don't want the CPU and the GPU to be absolutely ripping, you can go with something like this where, you're putting most of your watts into the CPU, not so much in the GPU. If you play a lot of esports, maybe you flip that around, right? So we'll leave that as actually a custom. Can I save that? Now, you will still be using Lenovo Vantage for some stuff. There is some cool stuff in here. You do have conservation mode. If you're going to leave this thing plugged in all the... Where did that go? You're going to be leaving this thing plugged in all the time. It will prevent the battery from fully charging, which does help prevent battery life wear over time. So that's something you might want to consider turning on conservation mode if it's plugged in all the time. You can do some sound tweaking here. Actually, there's not too much in here. It's interesting. Device detail updates here as well. You can get stuff like BIOS updates here. I wouldn't necessarily let it do it auto. I would do it my own. You can come in here, check like that. You can go into Lenovo, the website, support website, but this is where you're going to get stuff like BIOS updates. You don't want Windows to update your hardware. You want it to update Windows and features and software. You want to update hardware through the actual OEM, the developer. This is the developer here. This is Lenovo. They will supply you with BIOS updates and hardware-specific updates. So you want to come in here every now and then and check and update this kind of stuff. You don't want Windows to be doing that kind of stuff because it'll cause problems and mess things up. Okay, so now we're going to look at some Cinebench, not for performance. I've actually done that, but I just want to look at the noise level when it's actually being measured empirically. There's the actual tests there. So let's see what we can get here for noise. I already kind of know, but I haven't measured it. I like to do that kind of on the fly. So we'll go like this here. We'll try the 3 different modes, performance, silent, and balanced, and see how it sounds. And I also want to check the wattages here. The actual scores will be in the benchmark section. Will come right after this. So stick around for that if that's all you care about. But let's come in here to make sure we're on. That's balance mode. Go into performance mode here, and we'll start the test here. Check the noise and thermals. Now I'm curious how that cooling solution does to keep it cool. Spoiler for the scores, it does have very good scores, but I'm not 100% sure how the actual thermals will be. So under performance mode, we are hitting a core wattage of 112 and 115. Now the 8945HX is capable of doing more watts than that. Theoretically, it's actually technically a desktop version, a laptop version of the 7950X desktop, which this chip here in this laptop is this right here. This is a 7950X. You can see that. That's a desktop 7950X. It is actually basically the exact same chip. It's just slightly different. They tweak it a little bit, and then they put it in a laptop. So it's actually rebranded to 8945HX, which 7945HX, same thing, and it's actually based on the desktop. The desktop itself can go like 300 watts, but if you watch my videos in the past, and Gamers Nexus videos in the past, has one where they talk about 105 watt eco mode. This is running in like kind of an eco mode setting where you actually only lose about 5, maybe max 10%, going from max wattage all the way down to 105. And this here is running above 105, like 135. So it's running close to what you would get if you slap that CPU in eco mode, which is very good. Like spoiler here, 32,000. It's very similar to what you get on the desktop. Now, let's go down to balance mode. Give it a second to figure out what it's doing here. Now it's running in true 105 watt eco mode. When I have that CPU, which I'm going to put in a desktop again, and I've used it many times, many years over time, I do run it in an eco mode, and there's 105 watt eco mode. I think there's a 65 watt eco mode. That's close to the 65. There is a performance drop when you go from full watt to 105 watt eco mode on these chips, a little bit. And then there's a little bit more drop when you go down to like a 65, in this case 70 watt eco mode. It's not staggering. It's still going to perform very well, very, very well. But there is still a little bit of a performance drop. And then we'll go down to silent here. See how quiet that is, what the wattages are like. You'll see in the score section again, even in silent mode, does perform very well. These AMD chips are actually shockingly efficient. Here we're at like 30, 35 bouncing around. It's not a lot of watts for a chip that's going to pull this kind of performance. Let's check the noise though. Silent is very quiet. Around 35, a little bit above my ambient. I can hear it, but barely. Balanced. Okay, so silent mode is very quiet. Go up to balanced mode here. Not really any noisier. It's a really quiet laptop in the balanced mode, and that's still pulling 87 watts. So my initial kind of, I wouldn't say concern, but my thoughts that there may be issues with keeping it super cool is not a concern, especially with the type of fan that it has. It's not producing a lot of noise or turbulence. That's fine. Go all the way back up to performance here. It is definitely noisier in performance mode, but one thing to be clear here, I have to point this out because it's hard to pick up on camera. There's no whiny tone. There's no whirring. There's no whiny noise. There's no irritating sound. It's just air movement sound. Right, so even under full load, we're looking at around 50, 51 dB, something like that. Let it go all the way up, spin all the way up for like a long, maybe like a video render. 53. And again, there's no whirring noise, no irritating sound. It's just there is air moving and you're hearing air moving. No difference than like a generic room fan. In a room over or something like that. That's kind of what you're hearing here. Thermals on the laptop are actually good externally as well. Even in the center of the laptop where it's, super hot, I guess, where all the components are, we're not even hitting 40 degrees. At the back there, the very, very back where your hand's not going to sit, there's a couple spots where it hits, 40, 42, but overall going to be quite comfortable. On the bottom here, again, there's one spot there right near the vent where it's sitting around 52, but overall the bottom is quite cool as well. So if you actually do have it sitting on your lap, hopefully, with some actual airflow, you should get relatively good thermals here, and it's not going to be uncomfortable to hold. So I did a bunch of Cinebench tests here just to kind of get a few different scenarios. The first thing here is I did with one stick in, so just that initial 16 gigabytes of RAM, and I let it run all the way through. 32,402 is very good. That's upper level desktop performance here, very good. Similar to what you'd get on the 7950X CPU under 105 watt eco mode, which is basically one of the top 3 consumer CPUs you can get on the market. So very fast. And these are real cores. There's no E-cores here. This is just raw performance. Then I threw in a second stick. This actually is 64 gigabytes, my own personal memory that I had, 2 sticks in here, and it did bump up slightly, obviously getting that. DDR5 memory is nowhere near as sensitive to single stick as DDR4 was. Okay, then I went back to burst mode here, just did a quick run. This thing's running pretty cool here overall, so there's not really a big difference between that, quick burst of like 1 minute run through versus the full run. That's something that I do test sometimes on laptops because they may do well for the first like iteration or two, maybe a 5, 10, maybe even 1 minute of really, really high performance. Then they start to really thermal throttle. We don't have that issue with this laptop where the burst type situation is essentially the same as the score you're going to get after 10 minutes. So that basically suggests that we're going to have very, very good performance and very, very good thermals. Balance mode dropped it down there. There's a considerable drop to the wattages, but we're still getting approximately 30,000, which is very good. Again, upper level desktop performance, exceptionally good out of a thinner laptop like this, with only heat pipes, to be honest, to cool it down. Then 2 sticks here, a little bit of a jump there, another 1,000 points. So again, you can just rock this thing with 1 stick. It's not going to be staggering. We're not using the iGPU for really anything. Silent mode, there's a big drop in performance, a big drop in thermals, but not a big drop in performance. We're still getting 22,785. That's better than my upper level brand new 2025 Super Halo Ultrabook that has an Intel 255H in it. So, I mean, that's really good performance considering this thing's on silent mode. And then throwing in a second stick, a little bit of a bump. Actually, we went up probably around 3,000, so that's the most considerable jump by having 2 sticks was on silent mode. Interesting to see there. The included SSD here is a Kioxia drive, kind of an OEM drive, very fast, upper tier Gen 4 speeds there. Wi-Fi is very fast. That's as fast as my Wi-Fi can possibly go. Now, negatives. Finally, we're getting some negatives. Battery life is horrible on this laptop. Don't listen to anyone who says that it's good. It's not going to be good. It has a variant of the Dragon Range AMD chiplet design CPU. These chiplet design here, it does result in worse battery life. So even on idle here, full brightness, I don't put it on super dim. It's not a realistic scenario. And we're only getting around 2 hours of battery life, around there, maybe 2.5 hours of battery life. So, I mean, you could get through a class or something, maybe a couple classes, but you're not going to get super good battery life. So be sure to bring yourself, a little USB-C charger, a little 100-watt GAN charger or something like that. Then, just to show something, actually I'm doing something, not just idling, threw on some 1080p 60 YouTube, and it does use even more watts here. So, I mean, we're getting about an hour and a half, maybe. Again, definitely at most 2 hours. So definitely horrible battery life on this laptop, but it's not really meant for that. It's meant to be a mobile powerhouse. Okay, here's a look at the webcam. It's actually pointing slightly up. It's getting a pretty wide berth here. Yeah, it seems like it's wider. I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy or something, but it does seem like it has a slightly wider angle there. It is making me a little bit paler. It is actually spring, so I actually have some pigmentation like the winter, and it's definitely lightening it up. It's probably because the lighting is not the best. There's a bit here though, and it doesn't make a difference, so it's okay. It's actually not bad, and the polling rate is actually really good. So it's actually a good webcam for a Pro 5 series. Normally, as you go down the stack, the webcams kind of get worse. When you get up to stuff like the Lenovo Yoga 9, the really creator focused stuff, the webcams get really good. This is actually a good webcam. It's definitely compensating. The saturation is not fantastic, but otherwise, it's actually a very good webcam. So I'm actually really happy with this. If you're streaming on your laptop, maybe this is your only setup, and you want to do game streaming on YouTube or something like that, you have this as your camera, throw it up in the corner of your stream. You have no problems with this camera. It's actually totally decent. Game testing time. Game testing time. We are going to do only 2 games in this video. We're going to do Horizon Forbidden West here. We're going to show off some of the power levels, basically the different wattages, and see how it performs. And that way I can actually compare it to the 5070 Ti. 5070 Ti will be a nice little comparison because I've done it on the Legion Pro 7. We're also going to do some Cyberpunk as well. Cyberpunk is going to be a much more CPU heavy game. This is a more GPU heavy game. We'll try some different performance modes here overall. I will then probably rope in the 5070 Ti performance as we're going as well, so you guys can see that, because that's a cool comparison. Now, I am going to have follow-up videos on the 5070, at least 2, maybe more, doing some game testing. I haven't seen anything else yet, so we'll do some extra. But for now, we're going to start with the 5070 Ti, with the 5070 here, in Horizon Forbidden West. Okay, so we're going to start off here in performance mode. Okay, so let's check our settings here. So to start, 1600p VSync can be on. Sure, we have a 240 hertz refresh. We're never going to hit that. Upscaling off, frame generation off. So we're just at 1600p native here. And let's see what we can get for performance to start. So 1600p native in Horizon Forbidden West is going to give you around 60 straight up, which is good, honestly. It's not bad. Wattages there, we're hitting about 112, 110. Makes sense. This GPU is kind of rated around there. Not quite CPU heavy gain. We're only using 70, 80 watts going up and down. Now, this is a very nice screen. It doesn't have the OLED black, so there's certain areas, if you're in a game that has a ton of contrast, you're not going to see those absolute blacks. But in most games, you're not going to notice. What you are going to notice here is that beautiful 100% DCI-P3 screen here, looking absolutely fantastic, saturated, and beautiful. Noise levels, we're going to come here in performance mode. Oh, I guess that would help. 52, it's not too bad. Balanced mode and silent mode. Considerably quieter in balanced mode here, and I think you'll be impressed by the performance. No spoilers for that section. And silent mode. So similar, no, it's definitely pretty quiet in silent mode, but balanced mode is also very quiet. And that's where I think a lot of people are going to want to play. Right, under 40 dB. Still not bad, to be honest. So let's go back up here to performance mode, and we will just kind of see the different settings here, see if the performance is in that. So we're getting around 60-ish native. Let's put on a little bit of scaling here, because that is going to help a little bit. We're not going to need any frame gen, obviously, because we're doing all right without it. So we'll throw on DLSS, and honestly, I think quality is going to do the trick here. So that should give us a pretty big jump there. So we're looking at 75 over here-ish. That is a fair bit slower than the 5070 Ti, but they're still comparable. 5070 Ti was getting around 100 to 105 on average overall. And, we're looking at about 80. So we're looking at around a 20 to 25% decrease in performance, maybe 20. Memory usage here, 6.5 gigabytes. I mean, we're getting up there. Right, this GPU only has 8 gigabytes. So that's going to be one of the limitations of the 5070. I mean, the 5070 Ti, like I said, maybe it's 20% faster in this game. This is just one game. That's a pretty big jump, right? But it's still like in the same realm of existence. It's more than the 4060 to the 4070 was. However, the issue here is that the VRAM, we only have 8 gigabytes. So we have to make sure we keep it under 8 gigabytes, or we'll either start to get huge drops in performance, or we'll get texture popping. On the 12 gigabyte 5070 Ti, that's not really going to be an issue. Okay, so let's go down to balanced mode. We know we're sitting at about 110 watts there, 112 watts, and 75 on average. Give it a second to figure out what it's going to do with those watts here. Okay. Now balanced mode is actually doing pretty well, to be honest. These GPUs are very efficient. 5070 is going to look like the 4070, where it has that really good efficiency, where you drop down the wattages, then the performance does not drop that much. What do we lose? 10? Not even? 5, 6 FPS? Very good efficiency. Now, we still have a lot of watts going in, 80 watts there. The 5070 Ti, my test was around here, is about 75 to 80 watts. And obviously it was, it's actually surprisingly giving us similar performance. The lows are good here too, so the efficiency is quite nice here on this GPU. kind of when you go down the NVIDIA stack, the lower GPUs actually do slightly better in terms of efficiency. Now let's go all the way down to silent mode. We'll have to give it a sec for, it has some like AI stuff. Let it kick in for a second there. Okay, down to silent there. Here we're only at 41 watts, so we're actually way down in the wattages. And we're still getting 53 FPS. Very good. This offers actually better performance per watt than the 5070 Ti. I can tell you that right now. 5070 Ti was around similar performance, but it was actually using more watts to get there. It was about 60 watts. Very good. Okay, that's very good. I'm actually impressed with it. The raw performance cap at max wattages really can't compete that much with the 5070 Ti in this game. However, as you start to decrease the power modes, the efficiency, it actually starts to pull even or even ahead. We'll throw up some data there, but that's really good. Okay, now the last one we want to test here is the custom mode, which you can't really kick out like that. You just go here, custom. This is that very high GPU and low CPU mode here. So I have the CPU. Okay, so we'll come in here. Let's make a little quick custom. I'll go like this here. Turn all that CPU stuff down. Maybe to 30. 30 for CPU. GPU to CPU, dynamic boost none. GPU, TGP. Okay, let's try that. And we'll leave the fan just on my weird little curve there. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. Okay, very good. Okay, so it's starting to kick in that short-term boost. It allowed it to do its short-term boost, but then the long-term, it's only going to like 35 or whatever. But the GPU is way up to its 100 or so, which is really where the, okay, I guess I'm falling. Really where the performance is, and we're still getting really good performance here. So if you want to keep the CPU, wattages down, and then you have the CPU basically allowing the GPU to just tear essentially. CPU is only at 68 degrees here, because most of the power honestly is going to the GPU, and the performance is basically almost the same as full performance. Not quite, but right, like 71 here. Kick into performance here. What do we get there? 5 FPS? Maybe 6 or 7 total. But the performance on the CPU went up, the temperature on the CPU went up by like 20 degrees, right? So lots of different things you can do with the custom mode there. If you're not in a CPU heavy game, you could certainly choke the CPU slightly and let most of the power go to the GPU. You might lose a few frames, but yeah, you'll do all right. Okay, Cyberpunk 2077. We'll start with 1600p native, no frame gen, and no scaling. So just 1600p. This is the Phantom Liberty expansion, which is a very hard to run area. This area in here is a little bit easier. And as we come out, we're really going to see the FPS drop down. Yeah, big drop there, down to 45. It's actually a fair bit below the 5070 Ti at max, but it is a fair bit below. 5070 Ti was pulling around 65 to 70. But, I mean, it's not bad as a baseline for Ultra. Good lows and decent average. So it's a good base, good start for the 5070 Ti. VRAM, we're getting pretty close. 7.6. We'll see if we hit some VRAM issues here in this game. But not yet. So what we're going to try is actually make it a little easier to start here. So we'll throw in a little bit of scaling. DLSS, transformer model, of course. Quality, no frame gen. Still ultra. Should be a pretty big jump. Double check that. DLSS quality, yep. Actually, not as big of a jump as I thought, but Hopefully we can maintain 55 to 60 out in this really hard area out here. Yeah, you're going to want the scaling because we're able to maintain 60 out here. The 5070 Ti was significantly ahead here. I'm talking like 25 to 30 frames, but it's still pretty good. We're maintaining above 60 now. VRAM came down slightly. That's good. Okay, now we will try some ray tracing. This is going to be pretty bad, but we'll try ray tracing ultra just to get a baseline, mainly to compare against the 5070 Ti. So that's ray tracing ultra. No scaling. This is going to be pretty bad. Like, it might even just implode. So we've obviously crushed the VRAM there. Yeah, that's the 8 gigabytes. The 5070 Ti was pulling almost 30 here. We were getting, I think it was 27, 22, and 13. This is a pure 8 gigabyte VRAM slaying right here. Ray tracing ultra. Yeah, 0 FPS for the lows is pretty bad. Okay, let's try some scaling. So we'll come in here and let's actually just kick right over to balanced. So same thing, balanced mode now. Now we're under the 8 gigabytes that we have to work with, and the performance went up, I mean, infinite? 0 times 20? I don't know. Or divided, I guess. 20 divided by 0 is infinity. I don't know. That just doesn't compute. So this with scaling is actually performing close to the 5070 Ti with no scaling. We might be hitting VRAM actually out there. Here, you know, it's going up a little bit closer to 30. That's still pretty bad. Yeah, ray tracing ultra is going to be pretty rough. Pretty rough. I mean, we can try frame gen. I don't think it's going to really help. It might in this case because we're actually getting under the VRAM here, 7.5. Without scaling, it's not possible, like at all. So let's try a little bit of frame gen. Okay, now we're back with frame gen. We're going to go 4 times frame gen because the technology is there, and apparently that's what NVIDIA wants us to test. Transformer model, DLSS. Watch how bad this is going to be. So we do have 4 times frame gen, quality DLSS. The average should go up a ton, but the lows are going to be horrible. Frame gen is, yeah. Frame gen works if your FPS is already good or reasonable. This is, you guys can't see this, but like I move the mouse and there's so much input delay. Like it actually goes, I move the mouse and then the screen's like, nope. So 4 times frame gen, I mean, it brings up the average a ton, right? Like actually a ton. However, the lows are still going to be horrible. And I find it actually worse in many ways because the split, and there's so much. Whoa, you can't see that, but that's like, I'm moving the mouse fast. There's so much input lag and latency. It's horrible, unplayable. So that's completely unplayable. Let's not go there. Let's try like ray tracing medium. See, the VRAM kicked in. Okay, now we're doing okay. We're just under the 8 gigabytes, I suppose. And it's functional. It's actually making me extremely motion sick, by the way. There's so much latency that it's actually making me dizzy. It's funny. Like, I feel like I'm on a roller coaster or something. Yeah, so it's unplayable. It is actually making me sick. I'm not joking. So let's go here. We're going to go with some pretty reasonable settings here. So let's go ultra, non-ray tracing. And we'll go with DLSS here. We'll throw DLSS on, I suppose, balanced. With frame gen. Let's try that. This is normal ultra. So normal ultra, DLSS, balanced. Oh, it's so much better. So you're going to be, ray tracing is kind of out of the question. I think it's actually, part of it is just raw performance, but I think it's also VRAM. There's just too much, and we were getting up to 8 gigabytes, and the game was becoming a mess. Putting it on normal ultra, you know, don't worry about the ray tracing, or you could do some mixed settings. And I mean, you get huge jump here. With multi-frame gen 4 times, you're getting 160, 170 FPS. The lows didn't really come up at all, but the average came up. So personally, I mean, honestly, I would just turn it off. But I just want to try one more thing. We're going to go back to ray tracing one more time. Ray tracing on, DLSS, balanced, 4 times frame gen. Let's try it. So 4 times frame gen, balanced DLSS with ray tracing. It's okay. It's not bad. I think the lows are, let me just double check those settings. So ray tracing ultra, DLSS, balanced, transformer model, 4 times frame gen. Let's try that. Try it one more time. No, it's not playable. So ray tracing is the other question. So yeah, I mean, that's the settings here. You're not going to be doing a lot of ray tracing on a 5070. It's just not going to happen. It's just not enough VRAM is what it is. Even if you had the performance, the VRAM wouldn't be there. However, in a game like this, you turn off the ray tracing and the performance is very good, actually. So, the 5070 is definitely putting in work. It's actually a very fast GPU, honestly. It's very efficient. As you turn down the wattages, it actually does perform still very well as you lower those watts. You can see that. However, just be aware, it is still an 8 gigabyte GPU, just like last year. You're working with 8 gigabytes. The year before with 3070 as well. So, I mean, we're looking at 2 generations of 8 gigabytes, unfortunately. If you are going to be playing, intensive games, do consider the 5070 Ti to get that extra VRAM. It is a performance boost, like a pretty good performance boost as well, but it's also a boost overall to the ability to play these games with higher settings because of the VRAM. So, but overall, as long as you're okay with, maybe not maxing out every single thing, throwing lots of VRAM, throwing lots of RT, you're going to be able to fit it under the VRAM and you're going to have a good time. Okay, let's conclude. I've actually had this laptop for a few days. I did most of the game testing tonight. I have 2, maybe 3 more videos coming, at least 2 more videos coming on this laptop just for the game testing. I might have some other stuff as well related to the GPUs. So stay tuned for those. I don't want to just put a ton of game testing in this one because I like to show footage. Now, let's talk about the positives and the negatives. I like to start with the negatives first to get them out of the way. So, negatives, black chassis, hate it. Hate black chassis. They look fantastic and beautiful, but they're bad for fingerprints. I'm not much of a greasy boy, but these will get fingerprints. I wish that Lenovo and like every brand would go back to silvery laptops. The silver and the gunmetal versions of these laptops that we had in, I guess, 2022 was kind of when they started to fade. 2023, they just didn't get fingerprints like at all. Like you could use the laptop all the time and you wouldn't get fingerprints. For example, this is my daily driver. This is the ThinkBook 14 plus daily driver. This thing's covered in fingerprints, like literally covered. I haven't wiped this down in days. It's covered in fingerprints. And then, like, you can't really see them. This thing's gross. I just ate a bag of chips while I was using it. I'm not lying. It doesn't show fingerprints. Whereas a black laptop, I wiped this down right before I started recording. So you do get fingerprints. Like, it's just a menace. Other negatives, the NVMe setup inside is strange. Coming with a 2242, I mean, I don't really care. That's fine. But having that standoff on that one, and a lot of people, hopefully they watch the video and they're like, don't put the NVMe over top of that because it's going to be bent. You don't want to do that. So that's going to be one thing that I think some people might potentially get into with that second slot. With that first slot, I would say populate the first, I would say leave the first slot there as it is for now, then populate the second slot. Go into the second slot, add your second NVMe, a game drive. It can just be like a Gen 3. It's not a big deal. And then down the road, if you want to update the operating system, I would take out that little standoff there, and then you can put in a full-length one. Those are the only real 2 negatives there. I mean, in terms of the chassis, that too. The AMD processor in here is incredibly powerful. It's a Dragon Range, like it's a refresh, but it's a Dragon Range refresh, 7945HX based on the 7950X CPU desktop. It's very powerful and it's actually very efficient, very, very efficient when it comes to compute and gaming, all that. You actually don't need a lot of watts to get a ton of power out of this thing. The downside of it though, because that sounds like a positive there, is it doesn't park very well. These Dragon Range don't park very well. So when the laptop's not really doing anything, it's just kind of hanging out, the idle wattage is actually high on these laptops here. So you're not going to get very good battery life on these laptops at all. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and do like weird stuff. I use these laptops all the time. I use these desktop CPUs all the time. I'm very, very comfortable with them and I've used them in the past. Dragon Range, in this case, it's a refresh. the 7945HX, in this case the 8945HX, they do not park well. So you will not get good battery life on this laptop. You can do all kinds of undervolting, tweaking in that in general. Eventually you might get some okay battery life, but generally speaking, it's not going to be there. It's going to be the type of laptop you're going to want to take a charger with you and plug it in. I mean, you do have access to USB-C style charging. Obviously you have access to the standard charger. You can get Lenovo, like actual Lenovo style chargers that are smaller, not as high watts, or just go with USB-C. So it's not the end of the world, but don't expect to take this like just to school or to work for the day with no charger whatsoever and get all day battery. It's not going to happen. Those are honestly the only real negatives. I would like to see this model go up to 5070 Ti. Legitimately, I would really like that. That's not a limitation of this model. I would just like to see that going up there. And we'll talk about some other stuff thereafter. Now, positives. It's actually thin. Like, it's a relatively thin laptop. For a gaming laptop, like a full setup gaming laptop with good cooling inside, it is actually fairly thin. It looks thicker for some reason. I don't know why, but it's actually not a very thick laptop. It's not going to be as slim as the old 2022 Lenovo Legion Slim 7, but it's still relatively thin. Even with the whole package is closed up, it's relatively thin. It's actually less bulky than last year's 5. The last year Pro 5 was actually it was just a bulkier laptop. This is actually less bulky than the Pro 5 Pro from last year. That's really nice. Other positives, I mean, the keyboard's fantastic. Fingerprints, whatever, that's your thing. But overall, the keyboard is very nice to type on. Trackpad is fine, I guess, overall, really, really fine. Speakers are okay. The speakers are not great. I wouldn't really put them as bad or good. They're just kind of there. They just exist. So I'll give that like a neutral. The 7s just have better speakers. I wish Lenovo would just put better speakers in here. They probably do that to segment it. So because everything is not equivalent between the two laptops, so they have to do it somewhere. But the speakers are all right. So I would like to see those get a little bit better. Screen is amazing. This is my kind of screen here. So it's 100% DCI-P3 color space, so it has awesome colors. 240 hertz refresh, so it's going to look nice and smooth. You're also getting 500 nits, so it's nice and bright. Not as bright as a mini LED, but brighter on average than an OLED, generally speaking. It's also not glossy. I have a light there, I have a light there. That's a ring light, and it's bright. It actually is hurting my eyes. And there's a light up there. That thing's on super bright. There's a big light there. And even with those lights all over this screen, it's really not that bad, right? So if you're using this in a bright environment, school environment, business environment, or just a lit area, this can be significantly less reflective than this same laptop with the OLED that's on the Intel variant of this laptop, or the 7 Pro. If you step it up to the 7 Pro, that also has the glossy screen. So the glossy screen is going to be a problem for reflections. The glossy screen is also an OLED, so you do get better blacks. So you do sacrifice the better blacks here, but you get the advantages of an IPS being equivalent in terms of color as the OLEDs. It looks basically the same other than the blacks, but it's also much easier on the eyes. You don't get that eye strain that you get from OLEDs based on glare, and also just, OLEDs are just hard on the eyes. So that's good. Performance is fantastic. The CPU is a beast in this laptop, truly a beast. It's the same laptop, same CPU literally that's in my desktop over there. That is a 7945HX. This is an 8945HX. They're the same chip, and I use that as my desktop. That's and it's powerful. That has a 5070 Ti desktop GPU in it, and this same CPU in it, which is very impressive. So it's a very, very, very powerful CPU. The GPU is the one other thing that we're going to have to talk about here. The noise level on the laptop is fine. I mean, when it's in full bore mode, it's definitely noisier than its bigger brother, bigger sister, the 7. The 7 has really good cooling, and even under heavy load, it's actually a fair bit quieter than this laptop here. This has heat pipe setup, that has vapor chamber setup, so it's just generally cooler and quieter. The nice thing, though, is if you do throw this into the lower performance modes, it does get quite a bit quieter. The 5070 is efficient, so it still works in a lower performance mode, and the CPU also works in a lower performance mode. So you can throw it on balance mode and actually game heavily on it with no problems, and it's much quieter. Even silent mode, you can game on it relatively well. Of course, just doing day-to-day stuff, it's going to be very fast under silent mode, so you don't have to let it rip all the time, but just be aware that it is noisier than the 7. That's another segment out there. So otherwise, I mean, it's a really, really, really nice laptop. Now, the GPU. The GPU. This, I think, just launched today or yesterday with the 5060. This is the 5070. We also have access to the 5070 Ti on the Intel model, not on AMD, and also the Pro 7. So what do I think about this GPU? I'm not a fan of the 5070. Didn't expect that one, did you? I'm not a fan of it. Why? I haven't tried the 5060 yet. I haven't tried the 5060 yet. It's not even out yet. I'm going to buy it actually after this video. Literally, just go buy it. But the difference between a 5060 and a 5070 is not staggering. There is a performance difference there, but it's not staggering. There will also be a price difference. And the 5070 here is fast enough that it's starting to hit VRAM issues. We're getting to the point where these 8 gigabyte GPUs are fast. They are fast. And so what happens is you hit a game, you turn up the settings, 1600p, you start turning up those settings, you hit a VRAM limit, 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and the performance absolutely tanks. So you're not able to let this GPU stretch its legs. It gets stuck at 5070 performance. It works at 5070 performance when you're not hitting that VRAM, and it's fast, very fast, actually. And even at those different wattages, it's very fast. But then when you start to hit those VRAM limits, the thing just absolutely implodes as a performer. So the 5060 is the next one that I'm interested in. The 5060, you can get this laptop with a 5060. Yes, you're going to be cutting down the performance. Performance goes down, but the thing is, the performance goes down, so as a result, you're not hitting that VRAM limit as easy. So you're not leaving performance on the table with the 5060. So I am curious to see how that performs. Right now, this is still a fantastic laptop. It all depends on the games you play. Personally though, I am going to suggest right now that the 5070 Ti is a much better buy. It is more expensive, and you do have to go with the Intel model, which has its ups and downs. But if you move to the Intel model, you do increase that VRAM up to, if you can buy into the 5070 Ti, 5070 Ti gives you an extra 4 gigabytes of VRAM. That's a lot. It does give you more performance, like 20-ish% more performance, but you also get a VRAM bump too. So you're not going to hit that. You can actually let the GPU stretch its legs. So I would recommend, this is still a very nice laptop, especially if you can get it for a good price, but I would personally recommend this laptop. It's a fantastic laptop, but just take it down one tier. Come from the 5070 here that I bought, which was the first launch. Right now, you can get the 5060, at least on the Canadian Lenovo website. I'm going to buy it. Just take that step down. It actually is cheaper too. It's quite a bit cheaper. So go from the 5070 down to the 5060. I think you're going to be happier with it. And yes, you do leave a little performance, cut out a little bit of performance on the GPU, but you get more performance not being left on the table because you're not hitting that VRAM limit. Or screw the AMD model, throw it to the side. Don't actually really do that, but you could. And then you could buy the Intel model, which I bought. It's not going to be here for a little while, but I have tested the 5070 Ti extensively, and it's a really good GPU. That's the laptop there. It's really nice. This little configuration here that I got, I would tweak a little bit if I was going to use this long term, but overall it's a great laptop. If you can get this exact configuration for a good price, I think go for it. But I really do think that a lot of you guys would be happier with the 5060 model, or jump over to Intel in this Lenovo Legion here and get yourself 5070 Ti. You're going to be pretty happy with it. So that's the laptop there. Stay tuned for a lot more game testing on this 5070.